Hi, I'm John Ball, Blick Rothenberg's Head of Private Client. I'm joined today by my colleagues and BR partners Steph and Chris. We're talking about non-dom individuals resident in the UK and all things related to trusts. Steph, what do non-domiciled individuals currently benefit from in terms of trusts?
So currently, as regards trusts, non-domiciled and non-deemed UK domiciled individuals benefit from a pretty nice regime where any income and gains realised in the trust is not taxable on them unless and until they receive a benefit or a distribution. So they can pretty much benefit from tax-free roll-up. Tax-free
roll-up in the trust structure. Sounds pretty good to me.
It is.
Chris, we've heard some interesting announcements from the Chancellor last week.
We have.
On this subject. What have non-doms got to face going forward?
So, very broadly speaking, these protections are going to go away completely. The income and gains arising in the trust structure will be taxed on the settler if they're alive as they arise once they get past their 4-year window that they have under the new residence-based regime rather than the domicile-based regime.
So April 2025.
April 2025.
For an individual that's settled a trust, a non-dom individual that's settled a trust, that's been in the UK for more than 4 years, the trust protections essentially cease.
Yes, and that's the case whether the trust was settled long ago or whether it's new from 2025. It's going to catch a lot of pre-existing structures, which is potentially going to cause quite a few problems for some of these settlers, I should think.
Steph, that all sounds pretty severe. Do we think things might change in the next 12 months?
I think the guidance as it's been released today will look nothing like what we eventually end up with. I think one of the main reasons for that, in my view, is that the current rules are so complicated that changing them is going to open up a whole can of worms that probably the Treasury just aren't prepared for.
Yeah, I think we're already seeing a lot of pushback from a lot of interested parties on this. It's a very severe change. We've also got a general election in the next 12 months. We might have one budget again this year. We might have 2 budgets this year, depending on who does what. So, we need to wait and see what happens. We need to wait and see what actually comes out when the legislation, if and when the legislation is published, before we can make any definitive decisions on what to do.
So perhaps a wait and see message in terms of what we have now and what we might expect to come in April 2025, or potentially even after April 2025 if there's some delay.
Yeah.
Let's assume for a moment that we're dealing with what we have now. What might clients that are in this situation think about doing?
One option is to wrap your assets in the trust up in such a way that the income and gains aren't arising, essentially. So if you put them into some sort of bond wrapper, perhaps, your income and gains will be wrapped up in the wrapper. They wouldn't be assessed directly on the settler, and you'd be able to draw down on that wrapper as you can with any bond wrapper, 5% a year. You'd still be matched against your historic gains as you are now on the distributions, because you'll still be matched against historic income and gains that have arisen in the structure, but at least there won't be an ongoing tax problem for the settler in the UK.
They could also think about the option of taking distributions in that 4-year period where they're not taxed on foreign income and gains. Again, the guidance refers to an onward gifting rule that will be amended and introduced, which means that it would stop a settlor who's taken a distribution and not been taxed on it because they're in their first 4 years, stopping them then making an onward gift to a UK resident beneficiary. And we have rules around that now, which again are extremely complicated. So who knows in practice how it would work, but that might be something to think about.
Okay, so there's some things that clients can think about, we can start talking to them about at least.
Yes.
But again, we've got lots of leeway between now and April next year. The message being that we might expect things to change between now and then, and so no need to push the panic button immediately. No. But absolutely start talking to us about things that we could do.
Yeah, we can certainly start thinking about what the options might be and be ready to, not necessarily ready to immediately push the button, but ready to go as and when we do have a bit more clarity on what the position might be.
And if you don't have a UK resident settlor, as you said, Chris, the position as it stands might be largely unchanged. So it's not every trust that we may need to
No,
worry
indeed.
about.
A lot of the older structures are probably going to be largely unaffected based on the guidance we've seen so far. Certainly if you've got a dead settler, it doesn't seem like there'd be very much impact at all.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks, Chris. Really interesting discussion. overarching message, some things to think about, and if you'd like to talk to us about those, please feel free to reach out to any one of us or your usual Blick Rothenberg contacts.